All right, this morning's scripture reading is Colossians 3, verses 23 through 25. Sorry. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Anyone who does wrong will be repaid for his wrong, and there is no favoritism.
Once again, to all of our visitors, it is so glad to see, we are so glad to see all of you. It is such a blessing to have you here this morning. We kind of go in waves. There will be Sundays and we don't have any visitors, and there'll be Sundays that we have quite a few. And just know that if you're here and you're visiting with us, how important your presence is, how important your decision to be here this morning, what it means to us. As we get ready to enter into our worship service, or our lesson this morning, I just want to pass along a message to those of you who have in the past or will in the future watch one of these messages on our Facebook account or YouTube. If you happen to miss one of our services and you're following along in a series of lessons, you want to follow along, we do have these on our Facebook page. They're linked to our Facebook page, but they're also on YouTube. And you can get on our channel, Church of Christ channel, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, which would be a tremendous benefit to us. And so every Sunday you'll be alerted to the fact that we have a new upload. Also, our Bible classes are being video recorded and also uploaded. The ultimate goal is for us to be able to go live and to present these lessons live via YouTube or Facebook. We haven't decided which way we're going to go exactly with that. But the more views that we get, the more subscriptions that we get, that just speeds up the process. And so if you would like to do that, it would be a tremendous blessing to us. It's not going to cost you a dime, not going to cost you a penny. But if you would do that, that would be a tremendous blessing to the congregation. And ultimately, hopefully, as we get to go live, then we can reach more and more, greater and greater audience. As we started out looking at the book of Ecclesiastes, Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes, I have entitled this series of lessons, Life Lessons from a Liberated Lecturer. And I just wanted to reiterate that the word is liberated, not liberal. Liberated. Someone who is set free. They're no longer a slave. Not a liberal. Not someone who is loosey-goosey, anything goes or everything goes. That is who we are reading about in this wonderful book. You know, one of the gifts that I have discovered of older age, I just almost made a mistake. One of the gifts that I have discovered of being older, not old, but older, is that we are liberated many times from some of the errors of our youth, some of the binding, some of the prisons of our youth. And as I picture the author of Ecclesiastes, I picture someone who is older, someone who is looking back on probably a fairly long life, and maybe realizing how many mistakes he had made as a young man. Now, youth is wonderful. Youth is a time that we can explore, we can try different things, but many of those things don't work. Some of them do, many of them don't. And as we get older, we realize that we no longer have to try to do those things. The flip side of that is we don't have any energy to do it even if we wanted to. But that's one of the other gifts of becoming older. Just as a very quick review of last week, and if you were not here last week, you can go back, as I mentioned, pick up the video on YouTube or our Facebook page. There are 3 words that I wanted us to be aware of. Kind of a nuts and bolts kind of a lesson. But the first is our author. Who is our author? And I identified him simply by the name that we have in the book itself, and that is Kohelet. And in reviewing what I said and didn't say last week, you might be wondering why I did not refer to him as Solomon. And the reason is, I really don't believe that this is Solomon. There are a couple of reasons why I think this. Number one, he never claims to be Solomon. He claims to be a son of David, king in Jerusalem. But as king of the southern nation of Judah, reigning in Jerusalem, everyone could claim that. The word son of in the Semitic languages doesn't mean the original descendant. It can mean any following generation could be a son of. And so if you were king in Jerusalem, you would be a son of David. The other thing is, in the letter, or in the book, Kohelet gives us a fairly extensive list of all of the things that he did. And he never mentions the fact that he built a temple. Now you would think that if this were Solomon himself, and he's trying to impress his readers with all of the things that he was able to accomplish, one of the things, or perhaps the greatest thing that he would identify is, hey, I'm the one that built the temple. Another minor reason why I don't believe that this is Solomon is he talks about the fact that he surpassed everything that all who preceded him in Jerusalem were able to do. Well, if he were Solomon, the only person that he would be referring to would be David. If he's referring to kings that were in Jerusalem, well, that's not a very long list. So I don't believe that Kohelet is Solomon. It could possibly be. If it is, it doesn't really change the message. If it's not, it really doesn't change the message. Who Kohelet is not the critical thing. What Kohelet says is the important thing. And so I will just simply be referring to him as Kohelet. The second word that we talked about was Hevel. Translated, and this is where our English translations really love to be original and come up with words that try to get a real emotional meaning across. The ESV uses the word vanity. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And different translations, different English editions will come up with variations of the word vanity. As I tried to stress last week, I don't think that's really what Kohelet is trying to get across here. I don't think he's talking about vanity in the sense that we use the word vanity as something that's despairing. Now he will talk about certain components of life that create despair. And I don't want to minimize those. And in fact, next week, as we get into our third lesson, we're going to be talking about his vision of reality and what he sees in the world today, or in his world. But I pointed out that in the New Testament, James, in chapter 4 and verse 14, tells us that our life is just a mist that's here for a little while and then disappears. And I really think that James gets the gist, gets the real meaning of what Kohelet is talking about here in Ecclesiastes. And that is that what is going on in our world, what is happening around us, even what is happening in our life, is just something that's fading. It's disappearing. And so don't put all of your stock in what you see here and now. And obviously we're going to be able to further expound on that throughout this series. The third word that I wanted to stress last week is the word sama, which means joy. And that's what we're going to be looking at this morning. We still have one more word, one more very important concept to go. Excuse me. But we'll get there in due time. This morning, I want to provide the idea that, at least in the book of Ecclesiastes, maybe another book or two in the Bible, but I think it's valid in Ecclesiastes. It's okay to begin from the end. I typically don't like to do that, and one of the books that I really don't like to do that is the book of Revelation, another one of my favorite books. But sometimes I've heard individuals say, well, I have absolutely no idea what the book of Revelation means, but I've read the end of it and we win. Well, yeah, but I don't think John really would appreciate that kind of dismissal of this incredibly beautiful, powerful book of the Revelation. I think it's probably okay if we do this with the book of Ecclesiastes, because the book of Ecclesiastes, at least in my mind, has been twisted, bent, just a little bit. And so if we go to the end, and we start at the end, then we go, oh, that's what Kohelet, that's what the preacher wants us to hear. So then we go over here to the beginning. We can say, well, if that's what he wants us to hear, how's he going to get there? All right, so let's go over to chapter 12 and read verse 13 and read the summation, the bottom line. What am I trying to get at? From the preacher, from Kohelet. The end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is all of man. Now, that's probably not what your translation says. It's just that in Hebrew, there's this great big gap. For this is what? The whole purpose of man? The ESV here says this is the whole duty of man. Kohelet's just saying, fearing God and keeping God's commandments is everything for us. It's all of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. Well, with that, bearing that in mind, then I want to go back and work our way through the book, focusing on one word primarily, one word, emphasizing one word. and that is the word joy. The Hebrew word samah, and there are some variations to that word, but the basic root. And as we read through this, you're going to hear the same root in English. One of these wonderful coincidences where our English translation kind of flows along with the original word in either Hebrew or Greek. So we're going to hear the same root, even though the word itself might be slightly different. There's going to be a root in that word. So we begin with chapter 2 and verse 24. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. Okay? He wants us to know what is from God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? Then flipping over, chapter 3, I want to read verses 12 and 13, and then down in verse 22. I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. So I saw that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. For who can bring him to see what will be after him? Chapter 5, verses 18 through 20. Behold, what I have seen to be good and fitting is to eat and drink and find enjoyment in all the toil with which one toils under the sun the few days of his life that God has given him. For this is his lot. Everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil. This is the gift of God. Now, in chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, there's kind of a negative message here, but the same word applies. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind. A man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of what he desires, yet God does not give him the power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. Chapter 7 and verse 14. In the day of prosperity, be joyful. In the day of adversity, consider. God has made the one as well as the other. Chapter 8 and verse 15. And I commend joy, for man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful. By the way, this is a wonderful coincidence that I have chosen this particular lesson fell on Potluck Sunday.
I was going to bring that up.
Yes, we've got a lot of commendations to eat and drink and to be joyful. So here in a few moments, we are going to obey the preacher. For this will go well with him, for this will go with him in his toil through the days of his life that God has given him under the sun. Chapter 9, verses 7 to 10. Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and in your toil, at which you toil under the sun. And here, just in passing, I'll stop here just for a moment. This is where I think the word vain really gives us the bent and the twisted view of Ecclesiastes. He's not saying that our life is vain and meaningless. What he's suggesting here, and if we just change the word slightly, then the entire message of the verse becomes completely different. So read it this way. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your brief life. All the days of your fading life, or all the days of your disappearing life. You see, it's not something that we despair over. It's not vain in the sense that it's meaningless. It's just brief. James, in the New Testament, says your life is just a mist. That doesn't mean it's meaningless or worthless. It's just here for a while, and then it's gone. And then who's going to remember it? So while you're here, enjoy it. Now, apologize for that time out there, but one more text, chapter 11, verses 8 through 10. So, if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Once again, all that comes is passing. It's fading. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are passing, disappearing. Some English translations may have the word happy there, or happiness, in one or more of these passages. But in Hebrew, the root word remains the same. It's the same all the way through. And this is one of the things that I appreciate about the ESV, is that the translators have decided to maintain the root, the basic concept of joy, all the way through the book. And so you might hear the word rejoice, or enjoy, or enjoyment, to be joyful. But the root is there, and it's constant all the way through. And that is the word joy. And I don't want to borrow a phrase, which is actually a very dreadful phrase when you really stop and think about it. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we can't forget the main point of last week's lesson. And that is, we need to kick the happiness habit. We just need to quit focusing on being happy. Happiness is a feeling that is dependent upon situations and people that we can't control. Happiness is a resulting emotion of something that happens to us. And it is a good emotion. It is a wonderful emotion. It's an emotion that God has given to us. But we cannot control our happiness. And when we get this is one of the things I think the Kohelet has been liberated from. And that is this idea that I have to be happy in this world. If we believe that, then every situation in our life we're going to rate on how does this make me happy? Or how does this make me unhappy? Every person that comes into our life, how does this person make me happy? Or how does this person make me unhappy? And so we find this, what I referred to last week is this bone-crushing expectation that we have to be happy all the time. And if we're not happy, then we start blaming our situation or other people. Why do so many marriages end today? Well, he just doesn't make me happy anymore. You know, when we first got married, she did everything to make me happy, but she just doesn't make me happy anymore. And so I'm going to trade in this model on this model because this model makes me happy. This person over here makes me happy. Happiness, like I said, is a feeling, which, by the way, is exactly the same as sadness. Sadness is an emotion. God has given us the emotion of sadness, and it's wonderful and it's great when we use it as God has intended it to be used. But just like happiness, we can't really control sadness. On the other hand, we can control despair. We can control resignation. And 180 degrees opposite of that, we can control joy. We cannot control despair. We can control joy because both despair and joy are choices that we make in the face of situations and disagreeable people. Koheleth keeps telling us, chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter, joy is a choice. We may not be able to choose how much we have to eat and what we have to eat. We may have a plate of Brussels sprouts and liver in front of us. We may not get to choose that. Lord willing, we can. But we can be grateful for the fact that we have vegetables, even though we may not like those vegetables. We can be grateful and we can rejoice in our meal. We may not get to choose our job precisely and exactly, although in the United States, we pretty much, like 98% of the time, we get to choose who we work for, what we do, who we answer to, and if we don't like it, we can leave. When Koheleth was writing this, that choice may not have been there. They may have been stuck in a particular job, and that was it, the rest of their life. But Koheleth says, you can choose joy. We may not get to choose, in fact, we can't choose our family, except for our spouse. And even when Koheleth was writing, they may not have been able to choose their spouse. They may have woken up one morning and mom and dad walk in and say, by the way, you're getting married. In X number of months, X number of years, whatever it is, but you're getting married. Who? You'll find out on your wedding day. And sure enough, on your wedding day, there he was, or there she was. You may not have gotten to choose your spouse. We certainly can't choose our parents. We can't choose our children, our knuckle-headed brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles. Those are given to us. But we can choose joy. We don't get to choose the people that are in our life. But we can choose joy. And we don't get to choose how long we live. But we can choose joy in living out those years. And through it all, through all of these myriads and myriads and myriads of individual choices where we get to choose joy, we fulfill Kohelet's instruction to fear God and to keep his commandments. And so, for the second time in our series in the wonderful, which I think very beautiful, very powerful book of Ecclesiastes, the bottom line is, let us choose joy. And as I experienced even this past week, it's not easy. Sometimes it rains. Sometimes bad things happen to us. We can do everything right. And we can still end up with a flat tire. We can still end up with somebody in the line at the grocery store that doesn't recognize our importance. Drivers can cut us off. We get bad news in the mail or email or on the phone via text. I'm not saying it's easy to choose joy. And very often it's the last thing that we want to do and the most unnatural thing that we want to do. But through all of this letter, through all of this book that the preacher has given to us, his message rings clear. Regardless of what happens to you and the choices that you make, you can always choose joy. This morning, there may be an opportunity for us to help you. If you have not made the good confession to become a child of Christ, to become a child of God, to confess that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, we have this opportunity this morning to witness your confession, to witness your baptism into Christ. It may be that you just need the prayers of your family. If there is any way that we can assist you this morning, would you let us know as we stand and sing?